guys, this is Editing Izzy, and I just wanted to say I am running a giveaway for my 200 subscribers, which I am very grateful for, and all the information and rules and everything will be in the description box or in the comments somewhere, and also over on my Twitter. So if you want to enter that, then check out the description box. So yeah, thank you again for 200 subscribers. That blows my mind, and you're all great. So thank you, and check out the rules down below.
Difficult situation when you're pregnant and everyone's dead.
Hi guys, it's Izzy, and in today's video we're going to be talking about some spooky reads for the spooky season. Yes, that's right, we're in October, so it's time for some spooky books. And I'm a little bit of a scaredy cat, so I don't read like full-on horror, but these are books that give me like a creepy, like mysterious, scary, verging on horror, like just general spooky elements. So that is what I'm going to be recommending you today. I hope you read some of them and enjoy them now that we're in October. I mean, it's time to get spooky, so that's what we're going to do. So let's get started with that. The first, and of course the most obvious book is, I mean, do I even need to hold it up? You know what I'm going to say. The Diviners by Liv Bray. I mean, maybe I should just rename my channel Liv Bray Stan, like that seems more accurate. But The Diviners is spooky. Like there's ghosts and like spirits and like demons and all kinds of stuff. So it is a spooky book, and it is a great book for October, Halloween, whenever you want to read it. But this basically follows a group of characters living in 1920s New York, and they slowly start to discover that they have diviner-like powers. They can like touch objects and like read people, they can walk in dreams, they can heal people, they can like be psychic, they can do all sorts of things. They can, you know, divine the future. Of course, that's why it's called The Diviners. But this is a spooky book, and also my favourite series like ever. Maybe not ever because that's a bold claim, but top 3. So it's a fantastic series, and the first book is super creepy. Like there's a bunch of these like demonic, like sort of satanical ritual murders that occur, so it's pretty spooky and definitely a great book to read in October. I read the first book when I originally read this series. I read the first and second book in September, and then I read the third book in October, and it really got me in that spooky spirit. So yes, I would recommend it. If you haven't picked it up already, which shame on you, pick it up now. I mean, I endorse this message. The next book I'm going to recommend is This Savage Song by V.E. Schwab. Is this young adult? Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is young adult. Sorry for the slight ankle change. I had to go and do something. Back now. Yay. Anyways, so This Savage Song is about a city that is divided into basically one side there are monsters that are in this world. Basically, if you commit a crime, a like shadow is formed from you, and they are like these monsters, and depending on the sort of seriousness of the crime depends on how like vicious this monster is. And on one half of town there is a man who will protect you if you pay him a lot of money to protect you against these monsters. And on the other side of the city is a group of people trying to keep people safe and actually try and solve this issue. But we follow our two main characters, Kate and August, as they form some form of relationship, but August is hiding a big secret, and there's a lot of drama. This is a duology, which is nice. You know, we don't get a lot of duologies, so it's nice to not have 10 million trillion books to read. It definitely gives you a very dark vibe because this city is such a violent place, and the two sides of the cities are so at war, and so many heinous crimes are committed, and it's all just really, really dark. And also the politics are really interesting, and the whole thing is just really great. I didn't love the second book quite as much, but it was pretty good, and they're definitely like spooky, like gives you like kind of a dark feeling as you're reading it, so I definitely recommend them for October. Obviously that's what I'm going to say throughout the whole video. So while we're on the Victoria Schwab train, which we will be on for the next 2 books, the next book I have to recommend is probably a well-loved book, but I thought I'd mention it for October because I think it's a good time to read it, and that is Vicious, which is by Victoria Schwab and is also a duology. Now, this is an adult book, whereas this Savage Song was a young adult book, so this one is a little bit darker. Basically, this follows our 2 characters, Eli and Victor, as they are in university, and they decide that they want to try and start a science project to see if they can basically give themselves superpowers. In this world, they call them EOs, Extraordinary Ones. Is that what they're called? I know they're called EOs, but I can't remember what it stands for. I'm pretty sure it stands for Extraordinary Ones, but who cares? Anyway, so basically they set out on this journey to try and give themselves superpowers, and they find out that basically you need to have a near-death experience to get these powers, and once they get them, things get pretty dark from there. They become basically mortal enemies. We follow different timelines, but we follow them at university, and then Victor as he is leaving prison and is trying to take revenge on Eli. So we're sort of wondering how they go from best friends in university to like mortal enemies in the present day that we're following. So it's a really, really dark book. There's quite a lot of violence and torture and all that kind of stuff, so if you're not a fan of like bloody violence, then this might not be the book for you. But Vicious and Vengeful are both great. I loved Vengeful, the second book, even more, so I highly recommend reading them both this October because they're really creepy and they're really just like so intriguing, and you just want to keep reading because you're like, oh my god, these people are kind of crazy. And it's like, it really explores the themes of heroes and villains and what happens to normal people when they're given such big amounts of power. And I really loved the second book because we had more characters who started to get these powers, so we saw how each different person reacted to these powers and how they used them, and I think it was a really interesting theme to see what happens to, because I think we all think about what happens to superheroes. You know, we see superheroes, they get their powers and they want to save the world, but when you're giving powers to more regular people who may not be that kind generally as people, what would actually happen if they got powers? And I think it does an excellent job of exploring those themes, and I think it's a really great spooky read, so yay. And the final Victoria Schwab book I'm going to recommend is a middle grade, and that is City of Bones by Victoria Schwab, or is she V. Schwab when she writes this book? I don't remember, she changes her name. Can't keep up. But basically this is a middle grade book, but it follows our main character Cassidy Blake, and she has had a near-death experience, which means she can now see ghosts, and she has a ghost best friend called Jacob, and her parents are sort of like, you know those TV shows where people like go to places and see if, like BuzzFeed Unsolved, you know, they like see if a place is haunted and like find the history of these like haunted places. And basically her parents get this TV offer to have one of these shows where they go to different locations, historical locations of hauntings, and Cassidy has to go with them. And where she lives, generally there's not a lot of ghosts around, but when she's off to old Scotland in Edinburgh, a very old town with a lot of ghosts, things get a bit more tricky. And the second book just came out, Tunnel of Bones, and that was fabulous too. They were in Paris this time, and I just really like this series. Obviously don't read it if you don't like middle grade, but I think it does an excellent job at creating a really atmospheric book that makes for a really kind of unsettling read, and just gives you, like, really dives you into that creepy, spooky ghost mode. And I think it's really well done. I really like the plot, I really like the characters, and I love all the ghost stuff. And I think what more of a Halloween book could you get than a book that's literally about ghosts and ghost TV shows? So yeah, I would highly recommend it if you're a fan of middle grade. Great books. We can jump off the Victoria Schwab train now, but I mean, just read everything she's written, but those are spookier books. The next book I have to recommend is House of Salt and Sorrow by Erin A. Craig. This is a newer release and a book I was really taken aback by because it'd been quite hyped up. It was, you know, like this new release that everyone was gonna read, and I was kind of thinking that it would be kind of just run of the mill, but it was actually really good and really creepy. This book is a retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses. I don't know that story, so I can't tell you how accurate of an adaptation it is, but it's a great book. Basically, we start off following our main character as she is burying her third sister. They had 12 sisters, and they are now down to 9, and they have also lost their mother. And obviously the rest of this town thing, it's sort of set, it's not set in our world, but it's also not set in a world where there's like a magic system or anything like that. Yeah, so the whole place is thinking this family is cursed, and basically as we follow the story, the numbers are dropping and our main character starts to be kind of haunted by her sisters and her sisters' deaths, and she is kind of determined to find out what happened to her sisters because she thinks that the cause of death is not really the cause of their death. And it slowly gets creepier and creepier. She starts having these visions and these like hallucinations, and her and her sisters also find this magical doorway which takes them to places where they can dance all night and have wonderful times. But each time they go there, something starts to get darker and darker, and this is a really, really creepy book. Towards the end it gets, I would say, almost horror, like horror light, I would say, and it's just a fantastic book and really just kept me reading, and I just wanted to be reading it all the time because I was so intrigued. And I think it's really creepy, it's really mysterious, it has a great setting and atmosphere. Like, it's such an atmospheric book and does such a great job of setting the scene, and I just think it was a really well done book, and definitely a book you should read during October. If you're looking for something spooky, that's your book. The next book I have to talk about is another one of my favourite books, and that is Sawkill Girls by Claire Legrand. This is kind of hard to explain, but basically there's this island called Sawkill Rocks, I think it's called, and it's a very small island, so very few people live there. And one day a new girl comes to this island, Marion, and she lives there, and she starts to make friends. Basically our three main characters are Marion, Zoe and Val, and she starts to make friends with Zoe and eventually finds out that every few years a girl goes missing, and no one knows why, no one knows where they go, no one knows how they could have disappeared, but it's happening more and more frequently, and you know, the distance between the years is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So her and Zoe try and find out what is happening. Meanwhile, Val has a family secret that is kind of killing her, and she just doesn't know where to turn anymore. She is being abused mentally, physically, and is in a very dark place. And basically there's this mystery. It's quite supernatural, and overall it's just one of my favourite books of all time. I love it so much. There's a great female romance in it, so if you're looking for any queer spooky books, there's this one. But it's such a creepy book, especially towards the end. Oh my goodness, it's, again, I would say horror light, but it's kind of horror, but not, it's not like Stephen King horror, but it is pretty freaky. But this is just a great story about women empowerment and women friendship and relationships between women and what they can accomplish, and also creepy demon missing girls, etc, etc. It's just a great book, hard to explain. You should just read it. It's definitely a book you should read in October. I read it in October and it was like the perfect spooky book. I read it last October and it was so good. It was such a good way to start off October, and I highly recommend it. Like, just read it. I'm so bad at explaining it. It's just such a hard book to explain. You kind of just like have to read it. The next book I have to talk about is Bird Box by Josh Malerman. Malerman, is that how you say his name? I don't know, sorry. But this is a book where basically there's this apocalyptic event where if you see this thing, you go crazy and kill yourself, and you kill other people and then you kill yourself. So anyone who sees this thing is dead and has killed other people. So there are very few people remaining alive, and we follow this one woman who was pregnant at the time of this apocalyptic event, and so difficult situation when you're pregnant and everyone's dead. But she didn't see this thing. She got inside in time. She boarded up her windows. She covered everything to make sure everything was completely safe, and she stays inside. If she has to go outside, she blindfolds herself. And eventually we sort of follow two timelines. We follow a timeline from like when this event like first happens, as more and more people come to her house and they sort of form this family and this unit of support for each other. But then we are following another timeline where it is just her and her two babies that have been born, and we have no idea where everyone else has gone, and they are trying to get to this safe haven that they have heard about. And so we are following like just after this event has happened, and also this woman trying to get her two like 4-year-old children to safety while being blindfolded. And it's wild. It is such a creepy book and also such a fast read. I read it super quickly, like I just could not put it down. It's such a creepy book. It's really like, just makes you feel like on the edge of your seat, and you're like, so because the book is told like when they're outside, everything we're being told is like from what they can hear and what they can like smell and what they can touch, and so you kind of forget that you yourself can actually see, and it's a really weird place to be in. But it's such a good book. Some people are disappointed by the ending, but I didn't mind it too much. It didn't ruin the experience of the book for me. I just think it's such a great read, and if you're looking for something fast or something to get you out of a reading slump, I highly recommend Bird Box. It's definitely a spooky book and a book to get you out of your reading slump. So 2 winners there. The next book I have to talk about is The Dreadful Tales of Prosper Redding by Alexandra Bracken. This again is another middle grade book, but it is another atmospheric spooky season book. Basically Prosper Redding is part of this, he lives in Salem, and he is part of this like very well-to-do family. Like they kind of are like the family in this place. They're very rich, and basically I don't know, many generations back, someone made a deal. I read this a while ago, but someone made a deal with this devil, and it has to be passed along, and it gets passed along to Prosper, and he has to figure out how to kind of live with this demon, but also try and get rid of this demon. And like the demon and the banter is great. Like he's a creepy demon, but also demon with a great banter. And this book is just like a fun creepy book, and it does have a sequel. It's a duology. I haven't read the sequel, but I really do want to. I just haven't got around to it, but it is such a good book. It's just such a great book. It's got such a great atmosphere. It really puts you in that kind of witchy, like Salem, like autumnal sort of old American place, and it's just a really well done book, and I think it's great. And it wasn't the best book in the world, but if you're looking for something quite easy that's just kind of like creepy and autumnal that you just kind of want to get through, and again is another good book for a slump, I think, then I would recommend it. And the final book I have to recommend is The Devouring Grey. Not everyone loved this book, but I personally gave it 4 stars. I had a pretty fun time reading this. Basically, this new girl moves into the town of, what is it, Four Paths? I think it's called Four Paths. I think that's what it's called. If it's not, I'll put the correct name somewhere. But basically, this girl moves into town, and she's like, this town is weird, and she finds out that there are these 4 families that protect the town from this grey, and within this grey there is like a beast thing. Kind of hard to explain. It's a bit like Soul Kill Girls, and it's kind of just like, you kind of just have to read it because it's quite hard to explain. But she gets caught up in this grey and this beast, and the plot that families are trying to put together to get rid of this thing. And all in all, it's just a really creepy book that kept me really interested and was really creepy and was just a great read. And I believe there's a sequel. I don't remember when it's coming out, but I believe there is one. And yeah, I've done a terrible job at explaining this. I apologise. If it sounds even remotely interesting, go and look it up on Goodreads, because I apologise. My description of this is terrible. My brain, we all know by now, drugs, medical drugs, because I'm still not very well, but I need to talk about books, so that's what I do, you know. Illness who? We don't know her, we only know books. But yeah, those are all my recommendations for the spooky season. I hope some of them piqued your interest and gave you some inspiration for something to read this month. Sorry it's a little bit late, I haven't been that well to film, so I kind of just have to film as and when, but I really wanted to get this video out because I know everyone loves the spooky book and I really need some more spooky book recommendations. So if you know any books that are similar to any of these books that I've recommended, please let me know down below because I need them. I don't want like full horror, but if you can like recommend me a Stephen King book that's like creepy but not like gonna give me nightmares, then I'd appreciate it. Yeah, so anything that's not like full horror, I would love to read it, and bonus points if it has witches in it because I love witches and I need more witchy books. So let me know, gang. Come through for me, people. I need it. I will hopefully see you soon-ish, but who can tell when you're me and your body's out to get you. You just gotta work with it. Thank you so much for 200 subscribers. It means the absolute world to me. I literally can't tell you how much this community has helped me through these last few months. It's been a very difficult time for me health-wise. I've had some really bad news and some really poorly times, and this community and the kindness that I've been shown in this community and the love of books that we all share has really been a positive influence in my life. And yeah, I just can't thank you all enough for subscribing to me. I literally can't even comprehend that 200 whole people have subscribed to me. Like, that blows my mind. Like, I started this in June, and like my goal for the end of the year was 100 subscribers, and I thought that was ambitious. So the fact that we're in October and 200 of you have subscribed to me is just crazy, and I just want to thank every single one of you. You're all angels and I love you. So yeah, hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye.